Is it Adrian in Halifax?
Yeah, it certainly is. I had a quick question about, well, I hope it's quick, about morality. I've been having this argument with a particular family member who's I guess a dyed-in-the-wool faith head, as I've heard them discussed before. And basically, you know, the geometry of the argument is around morality and how, you know, he has the standpoint of if you don't have a God, if you don't have a higher authority, then there is no morality. There is no, you know, everything's relative, right? I'm not too sure what the proper term for that is, but, and, you know, I've tried to explain to him, well, you know, I have the same humanistic morality that you have. It's just that you think it comes from God, and I think it comes from genetics and society and so on.
My favorite answer to this is Euthyphro's dilemma. You familiar with this?
No.
Euthyphro's dilemma is something from, what is that, Plato talking about Socrates, telling a story about Socrates. And it's a story of this young man who's taking his own father to court, and he's all pumped up with self-righteousness because he's being so good. And Socrates asks him, you know, how do you know you're doing the right thing? And the man says, well, I'm doing what is commanded by the gods. And Socrates asks, is what the gods command you to do right because the gods command it? Or is it right in and of itself and the gods are just informing you of it? Now the problem, this has been resurrected and pointed out to Christians. The problem for Christianity is they want their God to be the lawgiver. Well, if what's right is just inherently right and the God only tells you what it is, you can, you know, cut the middleman and go straight to doing what's right. If, on the other hand, it's right because just because the God says so, then the God tomorrow could make up a completely different rule and say this is right now, and morality becomes just as mutable as Christians claim that it would be without a God. So they're not happy either way. The traditional way out for apologists is this nonsense about God's nature. They say, well, it really is, it's number two. It's because God says so. But the thing is, God's nature is such that he can only command the behavior that he commands. He's not going to change his mind because it's inherent to him, right? Mm-hmm. And they think they've solved it then. The next question is, where did the God get his nature from? Because if the God decided what his own nature was going to be, right, if he's self-created, then his moral rules are arbitrary. It's whatever he decided at that time. And if he ever decides to recreate himself or change himself, he could, right? He'd have to have that power. On the other hand, if the God did not create himself, then he's not really the author of morality. He's just the mouthpiece of morality, and whatever mysterious forces are the reason why his nature is the way it is, that's the source of morality. And once again, you can cut the middleman.
Yeah, I see. I definitely see where you're going with that. I guess the thing is that the argument posed by the person that I've been having this argument with isn't that sophisticated. He basically takes the stance.
And he's not going to make a sophisticated argument. His claim is you have to have a guy to make the rules or else there's no rules, right?
Exactly.
And the way, the first thing you need in the argument is to show him it can't be the way he thinks it is. It just cannot be that a God is where morality comes from. It doesn't work.
There's a slightly different variety of this that I've talked about before, which was, for example, especially among Christians and especially among fundamentalists who think there's a God and a devil, how do they know God's the good one and devil's the evil one? there's two possibilities. Either they have their own moral code, and they are assessing the actions of these characters, fictional or otherwise, and determining that this is the good one and this is the evil one, because this is the one that is most consistent with my moral code, and this is the one that is least consistent with my moral code. If so, then they are their own moral authority. If they are saying that they have their moral code because this God gave it to them, then basically you're in a situation where you have this all-powerful being who has told you what is good so that it confirms that he's good, which is exactly the thing an evil being were going to do if he were going to confuse you.
The only possible way out is to say, well, no, it's got to be God because he's the more powerful one, which is the same as saying might makes right.
Plus, if you add an O to God, you get good. It's just that obvious. The argument really is just as simple as there needs to be some authority in order to impose moral codes versus the claim that everything else would just end up as anarchy and subjective morals and everything's relative. We actually do have those systems. First of all, I am the ultimate authority for what I consider to be moral or ethical, etc. However, I have shared views that I share with other people, some people in this room, and there may be people in this room that disagree on things. But we live in a collective cooperative society, and we only impose the rules that we agree on. And in the areas where there are differences, we go to like a higher set of rules, which is, I may think that you're a moron who's endangering yourself this way, but I grant you the right to do that, and your rights and freedoms end where mine began. And so there's a subtle difference between how we go about enacting laws and determining what we're going to allow in society. But that, in and of itself, though, is still pretty much arbitrary. What's acceptable in this society, in the United States, right now, is different from what was acceptable in the United States 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, and everywhere else. But the land that time forgot. The land that
I've tried to
stole
speak
from
to him
the
about zeitgeist. I guess that's the term for it. You know, the social
Yes.
acceptance of what's acceptable.
The change of ethos.
I think it's sad. I think this individual, as are many people, they, instead of following a scientific method of everything where they form a conclusion based on the facts, I think this individual in particular takes the facts and tries to bend them to his already formed conclusion.
Well, he's looking for an easy answer. But
Yeah.
you know, if morality were easy, we wouldn't need even a God to tell us what what right and wrong. In fact, life is complicated, and difficult moral decisions are tough. They're complex, right? There's often not a perfect answer. And so those people that look for the easy answer, they just want a rule they can apply in every situation so they don't have to worry about it.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
It's lazy.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Adrian.
All right.